It was on the 6th of June 1944 when the Allied forces of various nations crossed the English Channel with the intention of pushing back the forces of the mighty German army. By August, Operation Overlord had expelled the Germans from nearly all parts of France and Belgium. To continue its movement, the Allies had to overcome a logistics problem, the lack of gasoline. There was still plenty of it, but it was stuck in the ports of Normandy, which became a major problem, getting it out to the troops engaged in combat across the entire area of operations. A plan was hatched to occupy a place nearer to the troops where the gasoline could be brought by sea. So on the 4th of September, Montgomery's troops did just that, capturing the massive port of Antwerp in Belgium.
The Germans hastened from the great Belgian port of Antwerp. The British Second Army, in its phenomenal lightning thrust through France and Belgium from the Seine, is nearing the city. These enlarged miniature cine-camera pictures, taken in secret, reveal the inglorious exit of the Germans as they beat their hurried retreat from the second city of Belgium. Members of the Belgian White Brigade appear as if by magic and tear down street signs to add to the confusion of the fleeing Nazis. Noted Belgian collaborationists are routed out and their furniture and belongings wrecked by people with long memories and short tempers for quislings. Already at the windows, Allied flags appear. Then into the waiting streets rumble our armored columns to find Antwerp with its great docks and industrial installations virtually intact. The Nazis had no time to leave their usual train of destruction. The people go wild with joy. Antwerp, like Brussels, and the many towns liberated in the incredible 200 miles in a week advance of General Dempsey's army, gives our troops an overwhelming reception. Antwerp is free, the Boche are gone, the Tommies are here. Quislings and Germans who are not quick enough to make a getaway are quickly rounded up by the Belgian patriots. The German commander was actually bagged by 4 British privates while he was having lunch. The prisoners are marched off, many, appropriately enough, to be locked in cages at the zoo. A strong protest has been lodged by the reptiles.
The only problem was that the Scheldt estuary leading to it was still under German control, which prevented its use. Neither Eisenhower nor Montgomery initially made opening the port of Antwerp a top priority, and this has been called one of the greatest tactical mistakes of the war. Instead, their focus had turned on 2 new operations, codenamed Operation Market and Operation Garden. Our story starts on the 28th of August 1897 with the birth of Hubert George Cookson Bate. Hubert served in the military from 1915 to 1916 before returning to the Midlands. On the 29th of July 1920, he married Cicely Marjorie Cannondine while in Kolkata. It was while they were in India that the first of 4 children was born, a girl, Coral Doreen Bate, on the 22nd of October 1920. 2 years later, they returned to England and Stourbridge in the West Midlands. 4 more children followed soon. John in 1925, Anthony in 1927, and Danella in 1936. But before them, Donald was born on the 5th of March 1922. Donald was educated at King Edward VI Grammar School in the town. After his education, he began his journalistic career on the Dudley Herald. In 1939, while living with family in Heath Street, the Germans invaded Poland and the world was plunged again into war.
Poland, September 1939. The German foe begins its ruthless march of conquest and sets the stage for World War II. Poland's 34 million inhabitants, crushed, scattered, and enslaved. Tens of thousands of square miles of territory shrink before the movement of lightning armored columns. Poland and the world learned the meaning of a grim new word: blitzkrieg.
It was 1941 when he was called up for national service, training in gliding, but after a crash landing, he realized gliders were not for him, so he transferred to a new formed company, the 21st Independent Parachute Company. The 21st was like no other in the airborne forces of any nation. The concept of pathfinders had been pioneered by Major John Lander, who, with the blessing of the then Major General Browning, set out about retaining a company of hand-picked volunteers drawn from the parachute regiment. The role of the pathfinder was to arrive at the drop zones half an hour in advance of the main body of airborne troops, to set up beacons to pinpoint the dropping area for the advancing aircraft, to clear any obstacles that would impede the gliders, and likely to secure the immediate area from enemy interference. By Christmas 1942, the unit consisted of 60 other ranks and 3 officers: Major John Lander, Captain Bernard Wilson, and Lieutenant Reynard Spivey, all future commanders of the company. During the Allied invasion of Sicily, codenamed Operation Husky, the 21st Independent Parachute Company parachuted ahead of the main force during Operation Fustian to capture the Primosole Bridge on the night of the 13th and 14th of July 1943. They then took part in Operation Slapstick, part of the Allied invasion of Italy, landing by sea at Taranto on the 9th of September with most of the 1st Airborne Division. After fighting briefly in the early stages of the Italian campaign, the 21st returned to the United Kingdom in December 1943, but left an independent platoon behind in Italy to work with the 2nd Independent Parachute Brigade. September 1944 would turn out to be its most challenging operation, as they had to land ahead of the 1st Airborne to set up both DZ, dropping, and LZ, landing zones, ready for what was to become Operation Market Garden, the Battle for Arnhem.
In September 1944, the Allied forces came up with a project or a plan to try and bring the war to a conclusion sooner. The operation was called Market Garden. It was actually 2 parts, Market and Garden. Market was to drop over 41,000 paratroopers, up until that time the biggest, largest airborne operation of the war, and Garden, which was for mechanised units to smash across the peninsula to capture 9 bridges. It was ambitious, it was brave, and it was possibly an error given the fact there was over 100,000 German troops ready and waiting. On the 17th of September 1944, Operation Market Garden began. Allied paratroopers dropped in but were met with severe resistance. The German forces attacked and counter-attacked, and there were some heroic and horrific battles, and in the end the supply of the troops became almost impossible. The operation did succeed in capturing Nijmegen and Eindhoven, and also a V2 rocket launching site, but with the delays of the mechanised units being able to get across the country, the paratroopers were hopelessly outnumbered, taking huge casualties. The Germans were able to slow the advance of the mechanised units to an absolute crawl. The Allied paratroopers with no armour and basically fight a last-ditch defence. In the end, the Airborne Division was unable to capture the bridge, and the Allies had to fall back to a final stronghold, eventually suffering over 8,000 dead. The Allied forces failed in their primary objective, which was to secure the bridge at Arnhem. The Germans attacked and counterattacked, And out of a complement of 12,000 men, when the retreat order came, it turned out there was not enough bridges to get them back across the river. The Germans subsequently rounded up most of those that were left behind. Today, historians believe that Operation Market Garden was, to quote Anthony Beevor, a bad plan right from the start and right from the top. And as immortalised by history and books and films, it was, in fact, a bridge too far.
Part of the 21st Independent Parachute Company that dropped into Arnhem was Donald Caladine Bate. Writing in his diary, this is his account of that operation.
Sunday, the 17th of September 1944. We took off at 10:20 a.m. We are pathfinding for the 1st Airborne Division, whose job is to secure the vital bridge at Arnhem, the gateway to the Ruhr and the heart of Germany. This is the first time that this type of job has been attempted by daylight. Usually we work under cover of darkness. Our plan is to fly ahead of the main force and lay out navigational aids to bring in the troop dropping planes and gliders to their correct dropping and landing zones. As our major has said, we expect to find some bad-tempered Germans ready to deny us areas which we want to use. But we shall not be taken unawares, and we are going down with Sten guns cocked and grenades in hand. The trip is uneventful, no flak, no fighters. We were lucky though, for some of the main force met both. Our pilots and navigators are the best. They take us right to the DZs and we are out on their first run up, dead on time at 12:20. Sloping down, I can pick out the landmarks which I had noticed previously on the aerial photographs. A perfect day, blue sky and a shining yellow sun. But where is the opposition? There is none. We have caught Jerry napping. This is just like an exercise back in England. I have a good landing in a ploughed field. My parachute harness is rather tangled up though, and I had to cut it with my fighting knife before I can gather my kit together and make off for a Dutch farm a couple of 100 yards away, which is our rendezvous. At the farmhouse door, I see one of our officers being greeted by a Dutchman, who offered him a glass of water. Sorting ourselves out, we must work fast now, as we hear the roar of approaching aircraft. And here they come, scores of fighters circling and wheeling high in the sky, the tugs with their gliders, which, casting off, come whistling down from every angle. Then the paratrooper carriers, Dakotas flying in perfect V formation. Paratroopers literally pour out and the sky is filled with hundreds of brightly coloured chutes. So far, so good. We have done our job successfully. One brigade has fanned out behind us to protect the DZs and LZs, which we shall require in a second lift of paratrooper gliders who will be flying in tomorrow. Another brigade has set off for Arnhem to get through to the bridge. We have a dozen German prisoners now, all artillerymen who have been in the district for about 24 hours. They came for reforming and re-equipping, and now they are digging slit trenches around the farmhouse for us. Monday the 18th of September 1944. The second lift was due in early this morning, but so far there's been no sign of it. Can't understand what's holding it up. Just at the time it was due, a whole heap of Messerschmitts turn up, attacking us unawares and strafing hell out of us. Who said the Germans had no air force? We hear that the paratroop brigade in Arnhem has reached the bridge but is having a tough fight. Then we hear that the general and brigadier have been captured and we feel a little depressed. This later proved to be untrue. Where is the second lift? We keep asking. Where is the second lift? At last, shortly after 2 o'clock, the second lift arrives. Again, the sky is filled with the roar of engines. There is plenty of flak this time, and the landings are opposed by machine gun fire on some of the DZs and LZs. But with more troops and guns coming in all around us, we feel much happier now. Tonight we form up to move with the reinforcements again into Arnhem to support the paratroops who are having a fierce battle around the approaches to the bridge. We pass up to the glider pilots, who are now forming in a fighting unit, and I see Staff Sergeant John Ainsworth MM, who was at school at Stourbridge with me, and with whom I came back from North Africa early this year. He's a veteran of Sicily, Italy and Normandy. We exchanged a cheery, if somewhat pungent, greeting. We cannot reach our objective, a railway level crossing, because we find there are a dozen or more Jerrys with machine guns sitting on it. So, we spend the night in a wood a few hundred yards away from the crossing. Tuesday the 19th of September 1944. At first light this morning, a battalion passed through to clear up the level crossing. There is heavy fighting going on all around. 2 of our platoons set out this morning to bring in more gliders and a resupply list. Again, the planes are late, and again, just when they should be due, the Messerschmitts come swooping in to strafe us. But the resupply arrived in the afternoon. The flak is very violent now. Jerry is certainly right on his toes, and 4 Sterlings, 2 Dakotas are reported to be shot down. Some of the supplies fell into German hands, which we can't get to because of machine gun fire, but we still managed to get a great part of them. A few gliders landing got shot to pieces and set on fire as soon as they touched down. By early evening, we had not been able to get through to the troops fighting at the bridge, and there is a tense hour when the battalion which passed through us this morning is forced to fall back after being exposed to heavy mortar and machine gun fire. We moved back onto higher ground and dug in a wood. Jerry is held, but he's obviously bringing in strong reinforcements, and there is no news of the Second Army yet. Wednesday, the 20th of September 1944. Germans attack us all day long and shell and mortar without respite. They have brought up some armour, mostly self-propelled 88s, which were a great nuisance, although our 17-pounders seem to be holding them well. The men with the Piats are doing wonderful work, braving all hazards to get into the open for a clear shot. Our food and water supplies are getting low, but the Second Army has been reported to be not far away and our spirits are still high. Heavy casualties are being taken on both sides. Luck is with us though. For so far, our company has only 2 or 3 dead and several wounded. Thursday, the 21st of September, 1944. Still holding on in the wood, firing all around us. Jerry seems to have encircled us. He's got a couple of half-tracks going round and round the wood till we feel quite dizzy. There was a resupply this afternoon, but Jerry got some of it. Feeling very hungry and ammunition getting low. At nightfall, a platoon of Germans moved into the woods 200 yards away. We expect a big attack at first light. Friday, the 22nd of September, 1944. God alone knows how, but we are still here. Shelling and mortaring is terrific and taking casualties right and left. Yet our company remains almost unscathed. There can only be one reason: good men, good training. This afternoon, Jerry gets very close and overruns one of the forward battalion positions. The counterattack restores the situation, but under cover of darkness we shorten our perimeter, leaving the wood and moving into the north outskirts of Stourbridge. It's good to get out of the slit trenches. We find some food in the house which he occupied and get our first reasonable meal since we landed. A resupply has brought to us some ammunition, and the Second Army is said to be pretty close at hand. Everyone is still very cheerful, confident of success. Saturday, 23rd of September, 1944. Meeting Panzer Grenadiers and SS men. Snipers everywhere. They infiltrate to close ranges during the heavy mortar bombardment. We got quite a few of them from the top of our house this afternoon. Told the armour is heavily engaged south of the river and does not know when it will be able to get through. Situation quite grim now. ST guns shelling from all sides. Sunday, 24th of September, 1944. At least 100 Poles got across the river last night. Today they relieve our platoons in the forward area. They, the Poles, are in fine spirits and tell us that they feel sure the armour will reach us soon. A tank patrol and battalion of Dorsets are reported to be on the south bank of the river. Rockafoons were on the scene today, and it did us the world of good to see them shooting up the German armour and positions. Monday, the 25th of September, 1944. Jerry is doing everything at first light. Tanks, flamethrowers, 88s, in fact the whole show. But we held it, and it quietened down for the rest of the day. We expect, however, that he will be attacking in strength tonight. A great shock this afternoon. We are told we are going to withdraw over the river tonight. Everywhere there are feelings of great disappointment. As we prepare to move out, Jerry launches his extensive night attack. And as we slip out of the front door, he's coming in through the back. We get down to the river with but one brush with the enemy. He opened with 4 automatics upon the head of the column, getting one of our best officers and 2 men, and tipping the CO's nose. A trying hour in the mud on the riverside. Jerry has not realised yet what we are doing, but he's getting suspicious and shooting up green Veery lights to see what is going on. To the right and left, the heavy guns of the Second Army are putting up a terrific covering barrage. Jerry, realising at last that we are withdrawing, showers the bank with mortar and machine gun fire, causing the worst hell of all the fighting. Men now so near the end of it are shot down right and left. Tuesday, the 26th of September, 1944. At last I am across. It is 2 o'clock in the morning. Passing through the Dorset lines, I link up with Johnny Ainsworth. He's unhurt, and together we trudge back to the Dorset HQ. Slowly, feeling very tired and wet through by pouring rain, we plod through the mud. Behind us, Arnhem burns, casting a fiery glow upon the night. The noise of the battle gets fainter. It's all over, and we thank God we are safe, and pray for those still on the other side, and those who will never get across.
At Arnhem, the company's performance had been exceptional. Its men were rewarded with 1 Distinguished Conduct Medal, 2 military crosses, 5 military medals, a Dutch Bronze Lion, and Major Wilson was promoted to Lieutenant Colonel and awarded the Distinguished Service Order, an extraordinary feat considering the size of this unit. Writing to Wilson, Lieutenant General Boy Browning said, "I have heard on every side how outstandingly your company has done. To have earned this special praise from such a gallant a body can only mean one thing, that your unit is unsurpassed by any other in the world. Please tell your chaps what a terrific reputation they have earned." Towards the end of the war, the 21st went with the 1st Airborne Division as part of Operation Doomsday to disarm the German forces in Norway between May and October 1945. It was then attached to the 6th Airborne Division, serving in Mandate Palestine, where it was still serving in September 1946, until the unit was disbanded. While Donald, John and Coral did their service for king and country, the rest of the Bate family moved to the Isle of Wight in 1942. In 1949, they took control of the North Bank Hotel in Seaview, a hotel that was requisitioned by the War Office to be used for Wrens who were working on the island. One of those who worked behind the bar was Donald's younger brother Anthony, who while on the island used to walk the boards at Shanklin Theatre before setting on the road as an accomplished actor, starring in both films and television throughout his life. While in Seaview, Anthony met and married Diane Fay. The family continued to run hotels on the island, including the Courtlands in Shanklin. After returning to civilian life, Donald joined his parents on the south coast, where in 1945 he married Joyce A. Crasweller in Portsmouth. They had 3 children. After the war, Donald continued his journalistic work with the Isle of Wight County Press and the Portsmouth Evening News. It was while at the Evening News he first worked alongside Sir David English, who later would turn round the stagnant Daily Mail and put new life into the Mail on Sunday. But it was in 1950 that became Donald's big journalistic break, when he was offered a job at the Daily Mirror, where he combined the role of rugby union writer with that of chief sub-editor. In his time at the Mirror, he was responsible for lots of changes, including taking on The Sun and signing up many big sporting names, including George Best, for only £100 a week. It was after reaching the position of sports assistant editor, his time was to be curtailed after the new publisher, Robert Maxwell, took control. Maxwell called Donald to discuss redundancy terms in 1986 and told him, "I cannot find one person who has a bad word to say against you." After retirement, Donald Caladine Bate continued to live in Worcester Park in Surrey, alongside other members of his family who had moved from the Isle of Wight in 1962. Donald passed away on the 4th of March 2006, aged 83. His funeral was held at Randalls Park Crematorium in Leatherhead on March the 21st, 2006. This film only tells the story of one of the many men and women who risked their lives to protect us from peril. Some, like Donald, returned home for a full life. Sadly, others did not. We honour the men and women of His Majesty's Armed Forces who protected our values back then and continue to do so today.
May the defence of the Most High be above and beneath, around and within us, in our going out and coming in our rising up and in our going down, through all our days and all our nights, until the dawn, when the Sun of Righteousness shall arise with healing in his wings for the people of the world. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.